Former presidential and New York mayoral candidate Andrew Yang announced his new book, Forward, will be released in October. The book, he says, is about the broken machinery of our democracy, misaligned political incentives, and a path forward.
Joining us now to discuss is Senior VP at Firehouse Strategies and Democratic strategist Michael Starr Hopkins and Washington editor of Real Clear Politics, Carl Cannon. So, Michael, let's go ahead and start with you here. What do you think has happened to Andrew Yang? What are you thinking about this book that's coming out, his mayoral candidacy that unfortunately didn't work out? I say unfortunately because I'm an Andrew Yang fan, but what do you think?
Andrew Yang is a really nice guy. I had the chance to meet him on the campaign trail, and, I think he's someone who genuinely cares. But after a presidential run that didn't work out, a mayoral run that didn't work out, I think it's time for him to kind of let the political celebrity life go. He needs to be doing substantive things now. For so long, he was just kind of the political outsider who took shots at insiders. Now he's kind of part of the problem, part of the system. So he's got to figure out a way to actually fix things. I'm not sure the book is the way to do that.
Yeah, I am also a quiet Yang fan, admirer slightly, because I like that he was an outsider. I like that I'm a libertarian, and he seemed to actually know what a libertarian was, which was almost unique among all the Democratic presidential candidates. Tulsi also clearly knew what a libertarian was. I think they were the only two. That said, it does kind of irk me a little bit. I feel like everybody wants to run for president now in order to have a cable news career or write a book or something. It's like, it's not a barrier. It's you do it in order to do something else. Am I being cynical, Carl?
I don't think so. I mean, he had no business running for president. Nobody'd ever heard of him. He wasn't really active in politics. He didn't have the experience. A lot of voters, I'm sure, a lot of Democrats thought, well, Donald Trump, after him, I mean, anybody can run. But I don't really think that was the moral of the story of the Trump presidency. It certainly wasn't what Democrats thought, that experience wasn't important. And you don't go for your first job in politics to be a president, not if you're a Democrat. So that made no sense. And I agree with you. He was running to elevate his profile, and turned out he had this other job in mind, mayor of New York. He wasn't qualified for that either, but it wasn't as big a stretch. The voters of New York decided that experience matters, that politics is a profession. We were talking about citizen journalists previously, but, citizen politicians, people love that idea. But there's things you have to know and you have to learn. Having said that, gone through the process, people who have challenged from the outside, tend to think, they look at that and they say, okay, they learned something about politics. And one of the things they learn about it is that there's aspects of it that are broken. So when Greg Orman ran as an independent in Kansas against Pat Roberts a few years ago for Senate, he wrote a book afterwards called The Declaration of Independence, with independence was T on the end of it. And when Neil Simon ran for Senate, another independent in Maryland, and didn't do anything, he wrote a book called A Contract to Unite America. So this impulse to write a book after you've been in politics and you've seen it, from at the outside point of view, that's an instinct a lot of people have. And I think those of us in the system can benefit and learn from a pair of fresh eyes. So although I didn't think much of the candidacies of Andrew Yang, I'm actually looking forward to the book.
You bring up some points that I think is the reason why outsiders are becoming more and more popular. And it is the fact that, you say politics are a profession and you like that people have have experience. But look at what that experience has brought us. I mean, it hasn't really brought us anything. There's no fundamental change. The system is clearly broken. These people who have these careers in politics aren't actually fixing anything. So, Michael, what are your thoughts on having these outsiders coming in, running for office like president? Do you think you have to have that sort of experience? And is that what really was, you think, the driving reason why Andrew Yang did not end up getting either the presidency nor the mayoral race in New York?
Well, let me say, I agree with you. All experience isn't good experience. And I think actually Andrew Yang's presidential run was better than his mayoral run. His monthly income policy is now mainstream, and it's something he was laughed at the beginning of the presidential primary season. So I think we should give him credit for that. I think the problem with it is Trump ruined the idea that you could come in with no experience and be a good president, not because of anything other than his pure chaos mentality. And so people like Andrew Yang, people who don't have that background now are going to be punished for it. And I will add in, Pete Buttigieg was someone who you could equally say didn't have a lot of experience, but fared really well. So I think it's less about really the policies of the person and more about the charisma and character.
Right. I mean, Joe Biden has more experience in government than like anyone alive, but I don't think it's the kind of experience. I mean, it's not the kind of experience I particularly respect or am overly fond of the policy agenda that has emerged from it. And I know, on the other side, I know progressives aren't really fond of it either. What do you think, Carl? What do you think Andrew Yang is going to be doing a couple of years from now? Is he going to transition into to sort of pundit mode? I know he was with CNN, I think, for a brief interlude at least in between the one campaign and the second campaign. So maybe he's going to go back to something like that. Well,
first, let me just say, look, Biden's policies may not be yours, but he won the popular vote by 7 million votes or something close to that. It was an impressive campaign. He kind of put the establishment back on the on the pedestal. And now the question is how successful he's going to be as president. In terms of Andrew Yang, I don't know. As I said, I'm looking forward to this book. There is one thing that's appealing about him, and that is he has ideas. Gary Hart ran for president, in the 80s and said, I have these new ideas, and some of them weren't new, but some of them were good. And we do need fresh thinking in politics. So, I hope he doesn't just content to be a talking head on cable. What he's going to be doing in 2 years, I don't know. But as I said, this idea, when Michael mentioned this universal basic income, this was considered a fringe view, a kind of a nutty view. People would laugh when you brought it up. They're not laughing anymore. So having a person in the arena who has ideas is not a bad thing.
Great points.
Yeah, Michael, Carl, thanks so much for being with us. We really appreciate it.
Anytime.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, guys.
More Rising after this.